Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Small Talk podcast. My name is Katy Fairman, and for today's episode, I'll be honest, I don't really know what we're talking about. I've got some very vague notes, but I've had a mental day. I haven't had a chance to do the usual podcast sheet, so excuse the chaos. And on the theme of chaos, why not start it in a really wacky way? If you're watching this on YouTube, you might be able to see there's some bunting behind me, and that is because we hit 100k, 1k on YouTube. Oh no, this podcast is going to go down the drain. And to celebrate, I've got some bunting and a party popper. So let's start the podcast. Woo! So, last week on the podcast, we were obviously talking about this rumour that was going around that Liam Lawson could be out at Rebel Racing after just 2 races. And sure enough, the day I published the podcast is the day that the news broke. And I know I spoke a lot about it last week on the podcast, but I feel like we've got some new information and some new quotes that have come out. Now the news is out there. Obviously, Liam Lawson will be racing back at VCARB from the Japanese Grand Prix. And I still think, over a week on, that is just the craziest decision. It was just 2 races for him to get used to what is obviously quite a challenging Red Bull car to drive. 2 circuits that I think I'm right in saying he's never raced at before. Australia were those treacherous rainy conditions as well that made, even people like Fernando Alonso make mistakes. So for me, it seems like just the smallest window of time that they've given him. There are talks and there's speculation that maybe Honda have had something to do with this very sudden switcheroo. Honda owning the Suzuka circuit, which we're heading to this weekend for the Japanese Grand Prix. But I do not believe that is officially confirmed. I feel like that's just what feels like a quite sensible rumour that started to swirl. But you know what things are like in the world of F1. Somebody says something and it spreads like wildfire, whether it's true or not. So, yeah, it's a crazy move. But the one good thing that has come from this, apart from Yuki Tsunoda, is finally in a Red Bull, which I feel like has been completely overshadowed by this whole drama. And I just feel for poor Yuki. Obviously, this is the opportunity of a lifetime for him ahead of his home race as well, which is awesome. But why can he not just get the Red Bull seat off of merit? It just always seems like there are other people that have their names put ahead of him. And now he's managed to get this opportunity that I think most of us would agree that he is very deserving of. But it's under all of this kind of confusion and controversy. But like I was saying, the one thing that I'm kind of happy away from that is that there have been lots of really nice messages of support for Liam. And I'm not expecting, everybody to pile on and say how much they dislike the guy. It's quite evident looking through social media that he's not everyone's cup of tea, and that's fine. But I don't know, maybe it's my algorithm, maybe it's social media in general, but I feel like every time I go on social media at the moment, it's just full of so much negativity and so much hate towards whether it's Lando Norris, whether it's Max Verstappen or Liam or whatever. And I get that, people have heroes and they have villains in sport, people that you support, people that you don't really like. But it has been quite nice and wholesome and refreshing to see a lot of love and a lot of support for Liam over this decision. I'm glad as well that he's going back to VCARB, to a team that he has got a lot of familiarity with. He knows a lot of the people there. And I'm sure they are going to take really good care of him. And also the VCARB car itself actually looks a lot more balanced and a lot more stable than what the Red Bull car is at the moment. So who knows, perhaps getting back into a car that is easier to drive, let's just say, could be a good thing for Liam, and maybe he might end up getting a wicked result in Suzuka. Wouldn't that be a good 2 fingers up to Red Bull? But yeah, I am interested to see how Yuki gets on this weekend. There's also the quote that came out from Christian Horner, which he said, Red Bull have a duty of care to Liam Lawson, which seems the most backwards sentencing that he could have kind of used in that. The poor mental health damage that you've probably caused to Liam by literally popping him in the seat and snatching him out before he's even had a chance to kind of really familiarise himself with that car is just insane. Especially considering, you know, like I said, the conditions in Australia and China was a sprint weekend. So he only got one practice session and then he was straight into sprint quali, straight into a sprint, straight into normal quali, straight into the race. I feel like the guy, you know, hasn't really had much chance to really embed himself in that team, get to know people, etc. So yeah, without kind of repeating too much of what I said on the podcast last week, and if you haven't listened to that, go back and give it a listen, because I feel like that was one of my favourite episodes I've done so far. I know that a lot of you enjoyed it, especially the race recap that I had at the end with the 2003 Brazilian Grand Prix. And producer Paul and I were having a good laugh before this started, because I say at the very end of the podcast, I think Fishy Keller maybe slipped out once at the end there, and then I actually said it about 8 times or 9 times or something ridiculous. It's one of those things that once I said it, my brain was obviously like auto-corrected it to that and it just stuck. But I love seeing everybody's comments about the fact that I still called him that and how much you guys enjoyed it. I have truly noted down that you guys really enjoyed the kind of old school, older race recaps. So I will try and find some more and cover them in future podcast episodes. But yeah, for Red Bull, it's more, I would say, negative press, which they've obviously had a lot of over the last 12 months, maybe a little bit more than that. But now they have a very small pool, what feels like, of drivers that they can call upon if this Yuki scenario doesn't work out. I'm hoping for his sake it works out. But if they are to kind of reshuffle again, obviously they've only just promoted Isaac Hadjar up after getting rid of Sergio Perez, but it begs the question, who could be next on their call list if things don't go their way? And so I've kind of put together a bit of a list of people who might receive promotions, or, you know, their phone might ring and it might be Helmut Marko on the other end. And for me, the kind of first choice would be Arvid Lindblad, who is currently racing in Formula 2. He was in F3 last year, and he is definitely going to be one of the stars of tomorrow. Helmut Marko has said some really, powerful quotes about him, which should get Helmut Marko to say something nice about anybody seems to be quite a difficult task these days. But he's been very pro Arvid, calling him potentially a next world champion for Red Bull. So yeah, it's some big, shoes to fill, and I'm sure Arvid will be able to do it. He's also coached and managed by Oliver Rowland, who is currently in Formula E. So Ollie's done a great job at sort of looking after him and making sure that he's developing sort of the next generation of talent. He's always been really key to that. So, another reason why I love Ollie Rowland. But yeah, he is a big talent, Arvid. So make sure to kind of keep an eye out for him in F2 this season. You've also got Isaac Hadjar, which is an obvious choice, obviously currently in the V car, but has certainly shown a lot of promise in junior categories. And maybe there could be a point where we see Isaac in the Red Bull, although that seems absolutely ridiculous because the guy's only got one Grand Prix start to his name at the moment. But the way they're firing through people, who knows, maybe by the summer we'll see Isaac in that Red Bull. I hope not for Yuki's sake. We've also got Iwasa, who is currently in Super Formula, currently leading the drivers' standings. I feel like he's gone a bit quiet. I kind of was thinking of people that were still in the Red Bull bubble, if you will. And yeah, I completely forgot about Iwasa because he's currently racing in Japan. He is Japanese. And he was doing such a good job and so prominent in F2, but they moved him over to Super Formula, which I was reading, he sort of thought at first it was quite a negative step in his career. But we've seen plenty of promising talents racing in Super Formula and have gone on to do amazing things. So hopefully he is one of them, but I'm sure won't be kept far from Red Bull's watching eye. In terms of internally at Red Bull Racing, I also put Jake Dennis's name down, and Jake now currently races in Formula E. He's a world champion in it, so, very, very good, one of the best that FE has to offer. But he's also the simulation and development driver at Red Bull Racing, and it's a role that he's had since 2018, I think. And he has had lots of opportunity to get behind the wheel of the car and things like mid-season tests. He took part in FP1 in Abu Dhabi in 2023 and also the post-session tests for them as well. And yeah, I think that he could be a really good option for them if they want somebody who is experienced, knows the kind of infrastructure of the team, has proven racing success in other categories. You know, he races in FE, but he also does a lot of other stuff outside of it. And although I think it would be a shame to lose Jake in the FE paddock because he is a fantastic asset, I do think that it's a sensible choice if Red Bull wants somebody that know the team and have not just kind of come from nowhere, not trying to pinch somebody, a bit like they did with Checo, you know, when he was out of a job at Racing Point and they brought him into Red Bull. At least Jake is familiar with the organisation. And talking of Checo, I have kind of put him down as a maybe. He's currently on sabbatical. I think a lot of things would have to change in order for them to bring Sergio back, even if it was to VCARB as somebody experienced to kind of help develop that second team. But stranger things have happened. I feel like I say that every week on this podcast, but I thought I would make note of it, just in case. But I think, like I said, a lot of things have got to unfold for Sergio Perez to make a return to Formula One and in the Red Bull family. It is Suzuka this weekend, which is very exciting. I'm wearing, in honour of it being Sebastian Vettel's favourite race, I have got my Sebastian Vettel, ironically, Red Bull t-shirt on, which is quite a choice considering how the podcast started. But yeah, I hope Seb makes a comeback. Every year I always say this. He always said that if he got given the option to make a comeback for one race, he would always pick the Japanese Grand Prix. He loves it so much, and you know, rightfully so. It's an awesome circuit, and I can't wait to see how they get on this year. Second year in a row where it's now during Sakura season, so cherry blossom season, so it's going to be visually a stunning, you know, circuit with all of the cherry blossom around the track. But yeah, I'm looking forward to just having a normal race weekend. Obviously the time difference for us in the UK is a little bit of a sting, but I can't complain. I just will get up and watch all practice sessions, qualifying and the race for Suzuka. I adore it. I think it's amazing. You know, whether that's 130R or the S's complex, there's just so much good stuff. And the fact that it's a figure of 8 circuit, and it's the only one currently on the F1 calendar where they have the overpass. So you could have a car going over the top and then another one going underneath at the same time. I'm a very simple person that I find a lot of joy in that. So yeah, it's a wicked circuit. And actually, I was doing a lot of research on Suzuka today and over last week to sort of prep for it. And I found out I think it's an interesting fact, but I appreciate for most people, they'll be like, so that's really boring. But anyway, I've led this to, you know, hype this up a lot. But that Suzuka, the city of Suzuka, is actually paired with Le Mans in France, which obviously is home to the Le Mans 24 Hours. I thought that was quite a nice, like, joining of the two. And I wonder, there must be other famous circuits that are paired with other circuit towns all around the world. Maybe that's something for the next episode or in a couple weeks' time to kind of put them together. And if anybody wants to do that for me because I'm lazy, then let me know. And in prep for the Japanese Grand Prix this weekend, as lots of you will know, I'm doing this really cool project with Mercedes. I am finding fans from all around the world to the circuits we race at, and I'm getting them to tell me why they think their home race is the best race on the calendar. If you haven't heard about this, find my social, it'll kind of explain it all, but I'm still looking for fans. So if you would like to get your story told, if you are particularly a fan of Kimi Antonelli or George Russell, come find me. Find me on my email that will be in the description of this, or find me on social media and reach out and let me know. I'm still looking. I think this is going to be one of the hardest ones. I'm still looking for a fan in Monaco, which is going to be quite difficult because it's quite a tiny population. So I think I might have to settle for a French fan that lives nearby. But I'm also still looking for somebody from Spain. If that is you, let me know. But the individual, or maybe the two people that are featured in my one this weekend for the Japanese Grand Prix I honestly think it will be difficult to top the cuteness that has gone behind me finding this person. And so you might remember last year there was this little kid, and when I say little, I think he was like 2 or 3 years old, and he got brought up on stage with his dad at the Japanese Grand Prix, and he was wearing this customized George Russell T-pose t-shirt. It was iconic. It was amazing. And Lewis Hamilton was the one that actually spotted him and heard him in the crowd, and they ended up getting them brought up onto the stage. And there was this picture of George with this kid both doing the T-pose, which Lewis Hamilton actually took the photo of. I mean, what an incredible keepsake to have this photo, knowing that Lewis took it as well. Like, the story behind it was just so wholesome. And I ended up finding him on social media. It sounds very Liam Neeson taken, doesn't it? I will find you and I will interview. But yeah, he has been really, really lovely, and has been giving me all the updates as to how it all occurred, and sending me lots of pictures. I need to ask and make sure I can get his permission to kind of insert these on the podcast on YouTube, because obviously a lot of them are of him and his kid. But he's happy for it to go on the Mercedes site, so I'm hoping that he'll be able to say yes, and if so, I'll sprinkle some images over the top here. But yeah, it's just really lovely to see such a young, passionate F1 fan. Obviously, we've seen them on broadcasts and stuff over the years. One that springs to mind instantly was that kid that was crying when Kimi Raikkonen was knocked out the race, and he ended up getting himself into Paddock Club. And it was like a really nice turn of events. Apart from the fact that the kid is crying on national or international TV. But yeah, it was a really nice conversation. And I just love the Japanese fans so much. They always dress incredibly well. Like, they make their own race suits, and they do their own customized helmets, and just basically try to make themselves look as similar to, I don't know, Lewis Hamilton or a Sebastian Vettel or a Michael Schumacher as possible. And there's always, in the crowd when they go to it, maybe it's during practice when there's not much going on track, they'll always try and hunt down and find, like, oh, there's Alain Prost in the crowd, which obviously it's not, it's somebody dressed like him, but it's just like, they're so creative. I just love it. I think Suzuka is definitely high up on the bucket list of races that I'd like to go to. And yeah, hopefully I will be able to share some of these pictures and a link to the article as well once it's all live. And I'm just absolutely loving this job that I've got with Mercedes this year, and connecting with so many of you and being able to interview you and stuff. So if you want to join the gang, if you're feeling a little bit left out, like I say, reach out, find me, and let's do an interview. Let's get talking about your local home race. As well as the Japanese Grand Prix this weekend, I'm also getting fairly prepped, because next week I am off to Miami for the Formula E. And I know some of you might not be maybe too familiar with Formula E, maybe it's not your thing, but for me, I always love going back into the Formula E paddock. I'm working with the championship again this year as a championship journalist, and I'm going to do another podcast another time where I kind of explain what my role is and what my, normal race weekends look like as somebody that's on the ground for these events. But I'm really looking forward to it. It's been a little while since the last race, which was Jeddah back in February. Ooh. But since then, they have done the Evo sessions, which I'm sure some of you might have seen. They invited quite a lot of big celebrity creators to get behind the wheel of a Formula E car. Sergio Aguero is one that comes to mind. They also had Brooklyn Beckham and a couple of other kind of big YouTubers. And also Mr. Beast showed up. And I know that some people have got, I think everybody's got maybe a slightly different opinion on Mr. Beast. Some people love him. Some people think he's not a great person. I'll be honest, I'm not really educated enough to kind of make that kind of judgment on him. But I know that he certainly has a lot of subscribers and a lot of followers. And he got the chance to get behind the wheel of one of the Formula E cars. And I honestly don't think he meant to do this, but he crashed the car. And it wasn't like a big impact or anything like that. It was more just a tap, and he damaged the front nose of the car. But I mean, it went viral, if you want to say it like that. and certainly got a lot of eyeballs onto Formula E. But yeah, we're heading back to Miami, not to the Hard Rock Stadium, which I'm really sad about, but instead we're going to the Homestead track, which is where people like NASCAR go. So it's going to be quite interesting seeing single-seaters, especially Formula E at that circuit. I think it's going to be quite different. It's a brand new circuit for Formula E. They have raced in Miami before in the first 2 seasons, but this is going to be something very different. And I'm excited to be back on the site and see if Ollie Rowland can keep up his momentum. We mentioned him earlier in the podcast because he is Arvid's manager. But he's currently leading the championship standings for Nissan. And he seems like your best choice for champion at this moment in time. We're only a few rounds in, 4 rounds in fact. We've still got a long way to go, but he has looked pretty dominant in all of the races that we've had so far. Also, can't wait to see how Taylor Barnard continues his momentum. He managed multiple podiums, pole position as well in Jeddah last time out. And I feel bad whenever I talk to him because he's very young, is Taylor, compared to some of the others on the grid. I think he might now be 20. I think he was maybe 18 or 19 when he got his debut in Monaco last year. Let's have a look. But every single time we talk about him or we see him around, we're like, oh, Taylor, oh, he's so lovely and he's so young. Oh, he's 20. Oh, in that case, he's old now. But now every single time he ends up on the podium or he gets pole, he's always putting himself in the record book as the youngest ever Formula E driver to do this and do that. But yeah, he's absolutely smashing it this year. I'm so proud of him. He's such a nice young man. And I can't wait to see what else he manages to accomplish over the course of the season. I think the only thing he's got left to do is to win a race. And the way that he managed to stay very cool, calm and composed when he had a lot of pressure on him in Jeddah makes me think that it's not far away. So yeah, plenty to look forward to. And I can't wait to board that flight and get going. Right, well, that was a little shorter of an episode than normal compared to what we've had on YouTube and audio over the last couple of weeks, but I hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. I will be back with another podcast episode next week, and I can't wait to see you then. Hope you all enjoy the Japanese Grand Prix. Hopefully it's an absolute classic, and can't wait to chat about it with you soon. Take care. Love you lots. Goodbye. And I think that although I would be really sad to lose him to Formula E because he's a fantastic asset to have in the paddock, I'm going to record that because it sounds like I said he's got fantastic abs. And although it would be... Oh no. And although I would be... And although I would be super sad to lose Jake in the FE paddock because he is a fantastic asset... Oh no! I got the giggles! Oh, this is going to be a nightmare. Okay.
I think you're going to have to move on to the
next
bit.
I think I'm going to have to. I'm going to leave it one more go. Have I suddenly gone really red from shot to shot?
No, I haven't.
Okay, thanks. I can't, maybe not. And although it would be a shame to lose Jake in the FE paddock because I think he's a fantastic asset, I do think... Oh, I have to cancel that bit out.